Secretary Tim Geithner's comments from earlier are two lawmakers from opposite sides of the aisle in North Carolina, Republican Congressman Patrick McHenry and Democrat Congressman Brad Miller. So glad, gentlemen, you could join us. Congressman McHenry, we just referenced the House passed its own version of a stimulus package without any Republican support. If the bill passes in the Senate as expected, does that mean negotiations are going to be that much tougher to get a final bill passed?
I think it's going to be tough to get Republican support for this piece of legislation because it's not a question among Republicans whether or not we need a stimulus plan. The question is, how do we fix this package so it actually is a stimulus, not simply a pork barrel spending bill with minor tax cuts? My contention is, and Republicans' contention generally, is that we need to have more small business tax relief. Only 3% of this package goes to small business tax relief, although 90% of new jobs are created by small businesses. And we also believe that we need to have more transportation infrastructure, more infrastructure spending in this legislation rather than the minuscule 5% that is currently in. Those two things will actually create jobs, not simply the health care grab that is in this legislation, not the extraneous spending that's in this legislation, not the liberal hopes and dreams that the Democrat Party has had for the last 15 years, and those hopes being crammed into this piece of legislation.
Congressman
It's
Miller?
not a stimulus bill, it's a spending bill.
Congressman Miller, I'd like to give you an opportunity to respond to that, especially since you're right there. What do you make? Sure. I mean, I've heard people say there's actually no pork spending or very limited in this bill. What's your take?
It's textbook economics when the economy slows down and you need to prime the pump, is figure out what you've got on the shelf that you've wanted to do and haven't been able to afford to do, and then do that when you need to create the jobs. When you spend money, you create jobs, and it ripples through the economy. If you hire a construction worker, they buy bread, the baker buys shoes, the cobbler buys candlesticks, the candlestick maker buys meat, the butcher buys something else. That's textbook economics. That's the whole idea behind the plan. And almost all that we've heard criticism of it has been just economic gibberish. It's the kind of talking point politics that we've heard for close to a generation now. And it comes from people who clearly are looking for nits to pick and don't want to support the plan, period.
I want to ask you both. I mean, North Carolina's unemployment rate, 8.7%. It was 4.7% just a year ago. So this is obviously going to be important to your constituents in your state. Do you think the president's timetable, and we'll ask you first, Congressman McHenry, is it realistic that he has a bill on his desk by the end of this week?
Oh, look, I'm hopeful that we can get something reasonable passed. It's not a question of if, it's what is in the substance of this legislation. The contention that I would make is you're taxing the folks in western North Carolina who are feeling pain, or there will be a tax increase in order to pay for this massive amount of spending, and it truly won't have the impact of getting more people working. My colleague here on the left it believes that if we just have simply more government spending, we'll have more people employed. If that's the case, why do we have a private sector? Why do we have private capital investment? And so what I want to have is real small business tax relief that actually helps people, not simply massive new government spending programs that the Democrat Party's wanted for years.
Congressman Miller, I'd like you to react to that if you don't mind, and then I want to move on and just ask you what you made of the Treasury Secretary's financing, announcing this morning, $2 trillion of efforts to spur new lending. So if you don't mind, I suppose you'd like to react to your colleagues' comments, and then we'll move on to Geithner.
I'm not sure we really have to. We've had lots of stimulus plans over the years when the economy slows down. We've got ways to measure what works better, and the fact is that spending works better than tax cuts. Both of them have some stimulative effect. If you put more money in people's pockets one way or the other, they will spend it. It'll ripple through the economy. It'll prime the pump. But generally, spending works better than tax cuts because it gets the money into the economy, and tax cuts don't. The tax cut stimulus package we passed last year, only about 15% of that ended up getting spent, so it did not have the stimulative effect that we wanted.
Congressman Miller, let's just stay with you. I mean, what did you make of the Treasury Secretary? What you heard from him, what you heard about the plans, was it detailed enough to satisfy you?
Well, listening to your programming for the last few minutes, it sounds like you all have heard more details than I have. I think how to fix the problem depends upon what the problem is. Is the problem one of illiquidity? Is the problem that banks have hard-to-value assets and persnickety accounting rules? Or is the problem really that the assets are not worth very much and the banks are insolvent? There's a huge difference there that has huge policy implications.
Congressman McHenry, what did you make of the Treasury Secretary's comments, of what you've heard so far from the plan? And we know you voted against the first TARP plan. I mean, is what you're hearing today, does it change your mind at all?
Look, it's far better than the Paulson plan, I'll say that. I think it's a move in the right direction for transparency and disclosure, which has been my main challenge with the initial TARP funding, is that taxpayers and investors and even the corporations and financial institutions that receive the bailout money don't know why they received it. They don't have a standard for judging. And I think this termed asset program through the Fed, using some of the TARP money, is better. I think the question for me as a policymaker here in Washington is, what is the cost to the taxpayer, what is the risk to the taxpayer, and what is the time frame under which we achieve the results desired in this program.
Congressman
I think transparency and disclosure will be very helpful in the process, though.
You're both on the Financial Services Committee. What do you expect to hear from the Fed chairman this afternoon? What do you want to hear?
I would like to hear whether the problem is that banks are insolvent, which I think is has different policy options, or whether the problem really is one of illiquidity. And we still don't know. 4 months into this, we still don't know. President Obama said last night, we still don't know what the banks have on their books.
Congressman,
it's not his fault. He's only been on the job for 2 weeks.
Congressman McHenry, in about 20 seconds, what do you really need to hear, if anything, from the Fed chairman, Ben Bernanke?
I want to know the long-term prospects for mass inflation. My concern with the $1 trillion stimulus plan and the massive new government spending, as well as the $2 trillion on the Fed's balance sheet, is what that does for our long-term growth and our ability to grow our economy and create jobs over the long term, and what that does for inflation prospects 2 to 5 years out.
We thank you both. North Carolina Congressman, Republican Patrick McHenry, and Democrat Brad Miller. We are going to keep this theme going. Treasury Secretary will be our guest in